Okay, it's Mark, and it's time for another live stop motion chat show. And today is September the 23rd, 2015. So actually, that means that our monthly challenges are almost. Let's see here. Our next monthly challenge for worms is due on the 30th. So one more week, and it's time to discuss that, of course. So if you guys are working on that, make sure to wrap it up and submit your short films. I think we got probably just one or two. So it's like Hira, Jim Reeve, and Clay Mara. It looks like have all submitted films already. So that's pretty cool. Um, I think this one might be kind of popular. I'm hoping there's a lot of people that post theirs at the last moment like usual. But if not, it will be fun to look at these so far. I'm curious to watch them now, but I can't do that because that wouldn't be nice, wouldn't be fair. So I'm gonna close that. And so, anyways, I didn't really have a lot of topics to talk about tonight, but I did find some stuff, some new things, and some people obviously are posting. Introduce yourself here is a section in our forums, and Jason Morrow posted recently, and he says that he's a teacher from Canada, and he says that I can't believe that it's taken me so long to find and join this site. The weekly live show is my favorite. I have enjoyed learning about stop motion for many years, but only now am I getting serious about creating my own. And I had some experience with computers, video editing, painting, wood and metalworking, storytelling, and theater. And stop motion animation gives me a chance to use all these skills at once, he says. And he says, all in the comfort of his own basement. And he says, my son and I plan to spend many wonderful hours tripping over each other, trying not to bump the tripod as we balance puppets and busy schedules. My ultimate year down the road goal is to create a complete story good enough to enter a local film festival. So that's pretty awesome, and that was posted three weeks ago already. And then recently, Alex Tong posted that he works for Zing. And if you guys remember, we talked about Stikbots, remember? And he is actually one of the people that comes from Portland, Oregon, and he makes the animations on their Stikbot Central channel on YouTube. And that's really cool that there's I mean, of course, they're selling a product, but it's really cool that the animators that are making the the toys are posting on our site and sharing their channel. That's really neat. And their product, of course, if you guys recall, is actually really cool. The Stickbots are actually pretty fun, and I believe their application, is free on for your cell phone to shoot animation with, and it's a really good stop motion program, believe it or not. So you don't have to buy anything if you don't want to. You can use their app to animate, and I should probably add that to our site. Thinking about that now. Let me see here, because I've got free in the free download section. I think I have here Anasazi and Helium Frog Animator, which are two programs which are really outdated, and everybody's using cell phones now. So maybe I should post a link to the Stickbot app, because that's something people might find useful, especially being free. So hey everybody, so Ron Cole is here. Welcome Ron, Mark Perry, Stephen Tan, Jason Morrow's here, Clay Mara, and Juan Alvarado is here. So welcome to the show, everybody. Ron Cole says, one frame at a time unless you're talking about CGI. They cheat. Kind of. And Clayton says, I'm going to start a project soon now that my work has died down a little. Yeah, I have one project I want to do for somebody. I want to sculpt something for someone. And then after that, I want to work on my own animation again. Start that up again. So yeah, that's one of these things where um, I have these sculpting clients, and sometimes what they'll do is they'll say, "Hey, I want something done," and then it takes a long time for them to get back to me or whatever, and I never know if they're really gonna pay me for jobs and things. So it's one of those weird things where if you do freelance work, um, you meet a lot of people who kind of talk and they don't act. So you kind of are like wondering, am I gonna have free time to work on my animation or creative projects and stuff? I think it's kind of like that for everyone, just like Jason was talking about, where he says, trying to balance making puppets with his busy schedule. But anyway, so Stikbot Central, I don't know if you guys have seen this. I might have shown some of these previously, but Stikbot is really cool. What's their latest video? Let's see. I think the Pong one. This one was from 4 hours ago. Stikbot Tetris. So let's check this out.
You got this. Oh, come on. That's it. I'm out of here. I'm gone too.
Oh, man.
Where is everyone?
Money, money.
What else?
Money, money, money.
Shake down. Getting.
Money, money, money.
So yeah, that's one of the Stikbot animations, and so it's really cool that what was his name again? Alex Tong. He worked on that, and what's neat is that they seem to be making a lot of these. They've got one from 1 day ago, one from 4 hours ago, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, 4 days ago, 5, 6. So almost every day they're posting a new video on here. And I've already subscribed, so you guys might want to subscribe also to Stikbot Central and check out more of their videos. So, thanks Hebert. He says, Mark, your stop motion are awesome. Thanks. And Ron Cole says, I got 3 projects making puppets for clients, and I just got a phone call tonight from someone asking me to do an emergency puppet job. I'm thrilled to be overworked. That's awesome. I hope it's like a Kickstarter project or something, because that would be nice. I think more people are really jumping on the Kickstarter bandwagon. I think it's like an acceptable form of, raising funds now. I think when Kickstarter was brand new, most people were, still trying to figure it out. But I think now people kind of have the knack of doing that, and especially on Indiegogo as well, which is something we've talked about that in the past, Kickstarter and Indiegogo. But I think that John, I think from Athena Studios, I think he's using Indiegogo for this. But anyway, there's a video that I don't know if you guys have watched this already, but on our Facebook fan page, Athena Studios posted a video, and instead of talking about it, let's just watch it and then we'll talk about what they are doing. See if I can expand it here first.
My name is Victoria Rose, and I was puppet fabrication supervisor on Mermaids on Mars. Part of that process included mold making, casting, assembling of puppets, managing the hair person, the costume person, and the painters to make sure that the puppet came together, and everything down to teeny tiny nail polish and little shoes. My love of making puppets began when I was 8 years old, and my dad showed me the movie Aliens. My dad went and explained frame by frame how, movie magic is made. From then on, I was in love with movies and wanting to be a part of that process. And I went to the College for Creative Studies in Detroit, Michigan, and that's where I learned animation. My junior year, I applied to Leica for an internship, and then my senior year, they hired me outright. And so I moved to Leica and worked on Coraline. To make a puppet, you have to first start with the character design. Once you have your character design, you have to make it into a 3D form. In this case, we used Maya and we made 3D models of the character. So once we had the 3D models and we signed off on them, we printed them at a 3D print house on a Connex 3. You then sand and prime the part to get it ready for molding. And then we were casting silicone inside silicone molds, which is also not really common, but I learned the technique and kind of perfected it while working at Cinderbiter. So it's nice because you can actually use clear silicone so you can see through the mold. So an armature is a skeleton for a puppet. It's basically the same as a human skeleton, just on a miniature scale. So for the armature for the mermaid, she has a ball and socket wire hybrid armature. So she actually has a grip point, which is, it looks kind of like a barbell across the length of her tail. And then she has a ball and socket joint starting here, one here, here and here with rods running in between, and then in her tail there's a paddle that has wire running through the tail, and the same with her torso. There's a joint in her torso, and then her arms are all wire and her neck is all wires. What was really great about Mermaids, and something that I was really happy and pleased with, is their tails are actually all silicone. And so what we did is we have clipped foam inside to allow for a more fluid animation. I layered in the pigment for the tail layer by layer with 3 different colors. And so it actually has this gradient look, is all built before you cast your object. So it's kind of like making a puppet backwards. So I thought that was really cool. As a hand specialist, hands are one of the most challenging things to make for puppets. And the reason why is, if you think about a hand, it's moving almost as much as the entire puppet itself. We wanted to try and create more movement to make sure the hands looked more human. And the other thing that hands pose as a challenge is, in animation you get what's called banana fingers. So when you bend a puppet's hand, because it's one piece of wire, it doesn't have the natural joints that human hands have. I created a joint system so that it actually had plastic joints in each finger on the wires that would allow it to bend naturally as joints, but then you could still bend it backwards if you needed to do an exaggerated pose. When you make clothing for puppets, it's really challenging because you're working on so much smaller of a scale. So for example, if you think of the collar of a shirt, in making real people clothes, it's not really that challenging, but when you try to shrink it down for puppets, it's really hard to get it to fold or crease in the way that it looks natural. The other thing that's really hard about clothing is mimicking little seams on jeans and things that you want to make sure that it looks to scale to the puppet, so you have to come up with a lot of interesting techniques that mimic big people clothes. The shoelaces on Julian are actually made out of embroidery thread that I waxed to make it look like human shoelaces. So puppet maintenance is probably one of the hardest and least known about jobs in stop motion animation. You're like the ninja of stop motion. A lot of the time puppets need maintenance because, the animators are moving joints and arms and heads and hair over and over and over. I had one time where I was wearing a hoodie that was dangling down, and I was trying to repair a hole in the sweater over 3 other characters. So I had to stand on an apple box and take a paintbrush and lean over all these puppets, and I'm trying to paint this teeny tiny thing, and when I pull back, oh my god, I'm stuck. The animator's like, don't move, don't move. It turns out that little lamp, a piece of gaffer's tape, had stuck to my hoodie. It was like surgery in the ER. Everybody's running over, you're making sure that you're detached, and then never wore a hoodie on set ever again after that. I pretty much would go out on set in a tank top and leggings and is no jewelry, nothing. And the reason for that is, if I had moved that little piece of tape, I would have ruined an 80-day shot with 8 characters. That's so much work that an animator had been pouring into that shot. So on Mermaids on Mars, we had 7 puppets. We had 3 mermaids, we had 2 Julians, we had 1 Glaucus, and then 1 dad puppet. So in the case of mermaids, it was actually miraculous how quickly we made 7 puppets. We made 7 puppets in 3 months with a team of 5 people, which is mind-boggling. That is not the norm by any means. We had 1 animator dedicated to 1 Julian and 2 other animators that kind of split the secondary Julian, and then 1 animator who focused all on mermaids, which in this case was really great because all the mermaids felt really feminine and beautiful, I think, and that was a lot of the animator adding her personal charm to the mermaids. I would say the other most challenging thing about making puppets would be Glaucus. He was a really interesting design for a puppet, and he had these epaulets on his shoulders, for example, that presented a lot of R&D problems, and he had really big feet, and he's a really tiny puppet, and the shorter and smaller the puppet, the closer that joints and things have to be, so you have a harder time figuring out how things are going to move and where they're going to go.
So pretty interesting, and I think they're trying to solve a lot of problems, and these mermaids having wire in the fingers, and I think what she's doing is probably similar to what they did with Jack Skellington's fingers, which is to use some sort of plastic bones on the wire so that you can get some angular bend to the fingers. It looks like for example here, can I make this bigger? Let me see. So like her finger here doesn't bend. There's not like a gradual curve. It actually has a jointed look to it. And maybe here as well on some of these fingers. So yeah, I don't know. Have you guys ever had problems with that before? I only built one silicone hand once, and because I'm pretty much the clay person, and I used some wire, and I used a stone mold, UltraCal 30 mold, and I put some wire in there, and then I took this silicone from the hardware store that was in a tube, and it had this sort of really strong vinegar smell to it. But I put it inside the stone mold knowing that it's porous and that it would dry, and it did. And the silicone cured after, I let it sit in there for like 3 days. And when I pulled it out, the hand just totally stunk. And the wire inside, it was pretty nice. When you make something from silicone and you bend it, and the bend is gradual, it's a nice thing. But I think if you want something like those kind of fingers to bend, and it's got to have a certain stretch on one side and compression on the other side, so you get that kind of crease happening in there. That's something that would definitely pose a challenge, especially if it's just one piece of wire. But I can't recall if I had any problems with the wire in the silicone hand that I used. And Ron Cole says, "Have I ever had problems with that before?" Arg, yes. And Nick says, "Yep, he's had problems." See, using clay, I mean, I don't really like clay very much, because on Zombie Pirate Tales, I would cast the hands with clay, and I had silicone molds, and then I would melt the clay, and what did I have? I just had like a piece of wire for the palm, right? So I didn't have wire in the fingers, and then so I had so basically like a how can I explain it? Like a coil, and then the coil would go into the wrist, and that wrist part where the wire goes, I epoxied in a piece of maybe 3/16 what do you call that stuff, like K&S tubing, square tubing, K&S. So when I did that and I poured the clay in there, when you pour molten clay or melted clay into a mold, when it hardens, unfortunately it becomes more crumbly for some reason. So clay becomes more crumbly after you've reheated it. I think the waxes might maybe separate from the filler material, or the oils, go more to the surface, or I don't really understand it. But yeah, the fingers would sort of crack, so I guess for silicone, what you have with wire is you get a gradual curve and you don't get these sharp angles. And with clay, what happens when you try to sculpt those hard angles in there is the clay cracks. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's really the better solution, but I'm thinking silicone. This solution seems pretty good, what she did. Seems to work. I might have to try that because I might be making some frog puppets in silicone because I think the translucency would be really awesome. And hey, Edward. So Ron Cole says, I spent the past 3 days making armatures to go in tiny human hands for a lot of molds. The biggest problem is binding the wires in the palm with resin clay and keeping it small enough in the molds. So how are you getting the air bubbles and stuff out of there? Are the hands really small? Because that's one of the things that I had, with clay, when you pour in molten clay into a silicone mold and it goes into all the fingers, even if there's an air bubble in there, you just take some clay and you fill the air bubble up and sort of smooth over that air bubble that's there. But silicone, that's like you get an air bubble in there and it's kind of, you can fix it and you can take some more silicone and dab it in, holes and stuff, but it never quite looks as nice as if you get a nice clean casting. And so Stop Mo Nick says, I spray glue a little of that super thin foam bandage into the wire. I spray glue a little, and then trim it off and then paint with some of the silicone. That seems to hide the wire. I don't go for really translucent silicone skin. Yeah, there's a material out there that's really interesting that I recently learned about. Let me see if I can tell you guys about it. And I mean, Ron Cole, you probably know about this already because I'm not really much into buying stuff from Smooth On because my budget for films, of course, is pretty low. And I don't have a Kickstarter campaign. I never had one for my previous films, so I was just kind of paying my own way. But, oh, I know where to find it. It's here. This folder, here, and then, let's see. Oh, here it is. Casting help, okay. So Daniel Horn told me something about a product for making translucent hard objects like replacement faces. All right, but I don't know, the process would probably entail, okay, so it's called Smoothcast 325 and it's a clear color match urethane resin. And so Nick was mentioning he doesn't like translucent silicone skin. And one of the things with films like Paranorman, if you guys remember, they 3D printed all the faces, and there's some translucency to them. Okay, so Ron Cole says air bubbles really aren't much of a problem with silicone because it's cast in layers, the first one being a thin skin. Oh, okay. So you're not just like dripping the silicone into the top of a mold with little air vents, and because that's one way that I've learned, you make like a hand mold and it's two parts, and then like the fingertips, usually what you do is you have like a little wire or something that comes out, and then that would be sort of where your silicone would push the air through, right? But I haven't tried that yet. I've just seen it done. I think it was on James and the Giant Peach. The mold maker showed that was one of his tricks. But they were casting resin parts, harder stuff. And Heffel Sniggener, if I'm saying that right, says, I overfill or inject silicone into the molds. No bubbles. Yeah, so you're basically pushing the air out, right? That would be a good way to do it. And Ron says, I get pretty always have stuff from Smooth On here, both rubbers and plastics. And Nick says, this week I'm back to the old school foam latex puppet. Too big and fat to make with silicone. A monster for Peter Montgomery. Yeah, Peter unfriended me on Facebook. I don't really know what's going on with him. I must have said something. Maybe it was the, I don't know. I don't know what his deal is, but I still follow him on, I'm still following his page, and he's doing some really awesome stuff. And Ron says, I hate Smooth On 325. And Heffel Sniggener says, not used it. I used lots of 305 though. What's the issue with 325, he's asking. Well, this is kind of interesting because it's a clear resin, but you can mix in different pigments into it, so you can get like if you want a fleshy color, translucent. So what Daniel Horn is doing is he was casting full-sized heads using this material, and so he's doing like some classic monsters like Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein and the Wolfman, and he would use this and he would mix in pigments into the clear side, which is, I think, it's not the cattle, I think it's the base. So I think he mixes that first, and when he casts these full-size heads, they sort of look like you're looking at a silicone casting, you know. But silicone is really expensive, so this is a sort of less expensive way to do it. It's probably a longer lasting. I don't know, like how long do you guys think silicone would last on a shelf before it starts to break down? Because I'm thinking plastics last, you know, for 1,000 years, and silicone will probably break down in maybe like 5 to 7 years. Because I know I used to have some molds, which recently, well, not recently, maybe a couple of years ago, I had to throw away because they were like leaching oils out of them, you know. But they were sitting on a shelf for like 10 years. But so this stuff here, you know, you can paint it with acrylics, this resin, and. But the thing that's nice about it is it's translucent. So you can, you know, if you wanted to make something and put LEDs in there to light up from the inside, like if you remember in Nightmare Before Christmas, there's like a witch's brew in a cauldron, and she's mixing it in, you know, stirring it with a big stick or a spoon or something. And you know what's cool about that is you can do that with Smoothcast 325. I guess Ron Cole is not much of a fan of it, but I've not used it, but it's something that you could actually, you know, you could cast if you had 3D printed faces and then you molded those in silicone. You could cast them with this for a translucent look, a more realistic look, if that was what you were after. But that's essentially why I wanted to show the 325, and I think he uses 300, which is white, for just, you know, regular casting. And I don't know what the difference really is. Like, for example, with Smoothcast 300, which is white, and something like Alumilite, which is another resin. And there's like a lot of plastic resins, but they all kind of, to me, they all seem kind of similar in the way they work and the end result. The only thing I can say is I used one resin once, which was really chalky, like it was in 2-gallon cans, you know, metal cans, and it just, you know, after like 2 months, you took a stirring stick and it totally settled. All the filler material sank, and it was dense and, like I say, almost chalky. So there's some really cheap resins, but these kind, which pour really easily like water, all tend to just, I don't know what the benefit of the, you know, the different resins are, other than maybe the hardness, like the shore hardness. I think maybe that might be the difference. But oh, hey Dave. Yeah, I should just call you Dave Hetmer from now on. Um, and Clayton Animation says I have a hate relationship with smooth cast stuff. Ron Cole says I made a mold of the Cyclops for Sinbad, the Fifth Voyage, and the mold warped. I had a seam line nightmare to deal with on that. So you were specifically using 325. Yeah, that warping thing. I've had a similar problem with that too, casting some life-size hands for somebody, and like if you try to take it out of a mold and until it's completely cool, and I'm talking like waiting for 24 hours after you cast it. If there's thin spots, yeah, it's the stuff I've used warped also, but I can't remember what it's called. Oh, Dean is saying he hasn't spoken to Peter for years, and Clayton says he unfriended me too. Yeah, which is fine. Maybe he just is trying to cut out all his people that aren't part of his close inner circle or something. Maybe he just doesn't like to read big walls of posts or something. I don't know. I don't get offended by it. And Ron Cole says Illumilite is just more expensive. Yeah, I don't think there's much of a... I mean, I used it for Zombie Pirate Tales. That's what I used, Illumilite. I used black and the white stuff, and it works good, but I think it's better for small things. Okay, see you, Clayton, in a bit. And Ron says, urethane resins with lots of filler always need to be stirred. Best if you have a stir stick for a drill with that stuff. Yeah, that's the thing that I do have one of those, but that stuff, it was just, it's settled, and I could not re-stir it because it almost hardened on the bottom after a while. So I just ended up mixing the two resins, what was left, together so it wouldn't be a environmental hazard, and then threw it away. And Ron Cole says I've made quite a few molds with Smooth on 300 fast cast plastic, and that's always works great. Yeah, because isn't there's like a fast cast and there's like a slower one? And that's pretty interesting. I mean, it's like, what's the big difference though? 325 and 300, it just... So Dave says, I found I prefer Smooth On because the product is more consistent. Monster makers, for example, will have different suppliers. And Dave says, I've used 300 for the skeleton puppet I finished in spring. Cast a dozen faces and miscellaneous other things. Yeah, I might be using 300 to cast with here. I have a full-size head I'm probably going to cast. So I might use that. And I'm thinking of using some sort of, once I make a thin shell casting, I'm thinking of using maybe a urethane foam, expandable foam inside, just to give it some strength after it's done. And then I'm going to paint it. So I don't know. I hope that it works good. Ron says, I totally agree with that, Dave. It's really reliable stuff. Yeah, let me just put in here Smoothcast 300. I've already watched a video on it because I was curious to see what it, how it worked. Let's see. I know they've, maybe the R. I'll get rid of the R. I'll get rid of the dash. Maybe I'll get a better search result. But absolutely the same. Well, I don't know where it is now, but the way that it works is, oh, here we are. Here we go. This is the one. Let's watch this one. Acting up again. Let me put it in. I'm gonna put it in a lower quality here because you don't really need to have HD to understand what's going on. So, I mean, it's unbelievably simple, right? It's just, equal parts A and B, and, you stir it together in a separate container if you can. I've got a ton of silicone I got to mix up starting tonight, and I'm using cups a little bit bigger than this, and I have a mold that's like, fills up a gallon of silicone, so it's going to be a lot of mixing again. But, it's a similar thing, 2 parts. You can weigh them with a scale. I think what they're doing here is just, looking at the cup and looking at the number of lines on the side and filling the cup equally, to the same line. But it's so simple to do this. For anybody out there that's never done it, and it's great. I mean, if you can afford these kind of resins and you have a project where you have to make multiple parts for like a set, maybe it's outdoor ornamental, anything, bricks or windowsills or, anything really. It's a great material, essentially. And this one here demolds in 10 minutes. But like I said, the stuff I used, and I don't think it's Smoothcast 300, but it's white like this. If it's really a thin casting and once this resin warms up, it stays kind of flexible for a long time. So if you want it to be really hard, wait until it cools off really good. So Dave was saying, where is it here? Expandable foam will work well. That did that for a couple of heads. That's cool. And Ron says, I also find 325 to be far more sensitive to atmospheric moisture. It can turn into a foam on a damp day. Wow. That's not good. And he says, for anybody new to urethane plastics, don't expect it to sit on a shelf for a really long time. Part A will always go bad in the container. It's the same story with urethane rubbers. Dave says, I've heard Repro 1 is better for making molds. So like reproduction 1, I guess. Repro 1. Now is that a silicone? Let's look. Yeah, I don't see anything here. Steven says, learn that the hard way, Ron. Wasted money. Oh man. So if you live in Portland or the Washington State up there where it's really always damp, maybe it's not such a good idea to buy that kind of resin if you live up there. And so Nick says, I always end up throwing out half of my urethane foam after the brown part catalyzes in the can. That's frustrating. So it's almost like you need to buy twice as much if you have something where you're not going to use it right away, huh? And Ron says, tip, when casting urethane plastics in a rubber mold, baby powder the mold before you cast for a bubble-free surface. The powder absorbs the plastics, so it covers the surface completely. Or what about that powder you were telling me about, Ron, where you thought it was like a powdered sugar, where you can get like a flat or matte finish to your silicone castings? Which I'm still curious as to what exactly that is. Like if it's some sort of, you know, because it's like you put it in water and it just sort of dissolves, if I got that right. And Dean says, is there a reason the video shows them pouring parts A and part B into another container to mix? Well, yeah. Like if you ask me, what I would first do is I would have taken the 2 cups that they poured it into, and if there's enough room, I'd put, you know, part A and B into the same cup already, and then stir it up, and then you pour it into a 3rd cup, because one of the biggest problems is that you get in the crack of the cup, you don't really stir that part into the mix, because your stirring stick can't get in there really well. So what happened, like if you have something like silicone, which is a tinted silicone and a catalyst, you can use a clear cup and sort of see, and take like a sculpting tool and see where the white part and the colored part haven't, you know, been mixed together, and you can do a pretty good job with silicone. In certain situations, unless it's clear, just a clear silicone. But if you use any kind of resin or anything like that, you want to put it into a 3rd container and stir it up just to make sure it's absolutely mixed. Because by pouring it into a 3rd container, you know, there's nothing stuck to the bottom. But yeah, you should probably mix the first 2 together first before you put it into the 3rd cup. I think they kind of did that in a weird way. I don't know why. Because usually, like, what will happen, you know, you'll do that, and then if it's a plastic resin, the surface sometimes will be kind of sticky when you pull it out of the mold. So you just want to try to, you know, avoid that, especially if you plan to paint it or sand it or something. You don't want it to be all gunky. And so Nick says, I would guess some would stick to the cup sides, so a 3rd container makes sure they were equal parts. And Ron says they sell a spray which is nitrogen, he thinks. I think it is too. I know what you're talking about. And he says that you spray in the container to lengthen the life of part A, and people say it works, but I've never tried it. Oh yeah, so Nick says matting powder is what it's called, and it tastes like icing sugar. And to me, it just makes sense. It would be powdered sugar because it dissolves. You know, the texture would be mimicking the texture of the powder. And if you think about it, it's just small, you know, random shaped, or probably if you look at it under a microscope, it's probably more like little cubes, sugar cubes, like little crystals, but all random, right? So you kind of get a nice flat finish. And Steven says, I live in the equator, so humidity is a big problem. You know, Steven, there's somebody on, it was on LinkedIn from the Philippines making full-size sculptures of like the Transformers and superheroes and dinosaurs and stuff like that. There's actually some good artists in the Philippines, but you know, they're kind of hard to come by on social media. But I don't know, if you ever want to know who that is, and let me know. I could probably send you the info, because might be some place you would think of getting a job or something, especially in the Philippines where that kind of work is rare. And Ron Cole says the powder for matting is powdered sugar. You dust it on your last layer of silicone paint. When you wash it off, it leaves a perfect matte surface. Yeah, so actually, couldn't you use your last layer of silicone paint? But I'm thinking you could probably even thin some silicone down and spray it over the entire thing. And if it's clear, you know, clear silicone, and then do the same thing. Because it would be kind of difficult in a way. I guess, well, maybe not. Depends on the paint job. But anyways, what else, guys? So we have about 15 minutes left to the show. What else can we talk about? Behind the scenes, maybe this one, Karel Zemen. Talk about some historical stop motion and change the topic a bit. Steven, I can't remember her name now. I can't remember her name, but she friended me just a couple of days ago on LinkedIn. So Ron Call says Smooth On now makes an additive for silicone called, so it's Novox Matte, that causes the rubber to be matte. I've tried it and it works, but it's only a satin finish. The powder is better. Yeah, I think, you know what? I saw a video of that. I saw a video, or was it, no, you know what? I'm thinking of a different kind of thing. It was a spray. That's some sort of spray that they used. And it was definitely not flat. It was definitely like a... Yeah, it was definitely a satin too. But anyway, alright. So, back to this. So somebody posted this. I think it was Lionel Orozco. I don't know if he's here. I think he posted this on his webpage recently. Maybe I should bring that up. Let me do this real quick. And Lionel has like a... he still posts news. I mean, I don't know if you guys visit his page often. He's on my daily, daily places to visit, but I don't really, I have to say, I don't visit his page as much as I used to. But what he's done is he's built around his, or into his site, all of his Facebook posts. So he doesn't really post news like he used to. The format has changed mostly to Facebook because I think he's trying to, reach out into social media, which is a more popular place to post in. And he's got about 1,600 likes already. And so what he does, if you click on his Facebook page, you'll see the news story here or wherever. And then somehow it's being plopped into his main website. So you can either visit stopmotionworks.com for all this cool stuff. He's got a gallery and library and links, and I don't know what's in his store. Maybe that's a new thing. Oh, okay. I think he's just linking to other people's stores, which is nice. And the news and the home, or you can find the news here in the top right. So you click on that, and that's where you can see basically the same stuff as on his Facebook page. And so his Facebook page here is, scroll up, Stop Motion Works. So you guys should definitely like that if you haven't already. Ah, okay, that's nice. So yeah, you guys are subscribed already. That's good. Yeah, we should definitely discuss more of Smooth On products in future shows, because it's really good to know what's out there. It's like, what you can do with all of these new materials. So where was that here? Here we go. Make this big. Steven says, hey Mark, I'm currently in college and my thesis project is to create a website to educate stop motion to adolescent kids. Got any tips? Well, I would definitely do it in Tagalog, because I mean, you could do it in English too, right? But if there's kids that are more fluent in Tagalog, you should probably do that, because it would be more unique than anybody else, right? And catering to the Philippines, unless you're wanting to, attract a worldwide audience. But I think, it would be really cool to have a Filipino-based stop motion website. I would definitely do that, because it's not something well known in the Philippines. I don't know if it's or well done often, and I think it might be because of the most people don't have lots of money in there, but there's a lot of free options. Like I was saying before, the Stikbots, they have an application with free stop motion software for your phone, and I think everybody in the Philippines has a cell phone. That was like the one thing I learned early on when I went there, was that is a Filipino phenomenon, right? It's like there's, nobody really has computers in their houses. A lot of, upper class or middle class people do, but a lot of people don't have computers. And but whatever they have access to would be, if you could teach people how to use what is available in the Philippines to make a stop motion film, like what, depending on the materials that are there, readily available materials and free applications for your cell phone. I mean, I'm thinking that would be really cool if you could do that. That's just my suggestion. So Ron Cole says you need to be on the Smooth On mailing list because they regularly send out info about new products, and a lot of it is very useful. That's definitely something worth thinking about. I don't think am I on their mailing list? I don't think I am, actually. The funny part of it is I have my clients order the products and send them to my house. I go on their site, but I almost never order stuff directly from Smooth On. I think when you probably buy something on there, it probably has a little box like, when you check out, do you want to sign up for our, latest product information or something, But maybe I need to go on their site and then look for that without buying anything. But I am going to buy some stuff from them in the very, very near future. So, well, anyways, let's watch this video. This is kind of neat. This is like a really interesting historic, person in stop motion that a lot of people haven't heard about. So let's watch here, because our show is almost over.
Na zdraví 1. měsíčňana.
It's a rare feeling to see something, and you see it in his work where you just get, an energy.
His influence on me is continual, is all I can say.
映画の視覚的な驚きそのものを与えてくれる作家。
Everything post-Star Wars is a fantastic effect done in the contemporary era on computers. But of course, those of us who know Karel Zemen's work say, no, all of these things were there in his films almost from the 1940s onwards.
I think Zeman's films didn't require, you didn't even need the dialogue, to be quite honest. They were told visually is what was wonderful, and I think that's the key to it.
Let's see if we can. Let's do this here. See if it'll play.
Everybody in the world can understand it.
I was very lucky to see a documentary on him, so seeing his process, yeah, and it was him and Ray Harryhausen were, I think, the two of the inspirations.
Ray appreciated him. I would say that he was the kind of Ray Harryhausen of Middle Europe.
I love the engineer on the train, and it's static, and the little tracks are rolling past. It makes me laugh when I see it because it's so innocent and yet so ingenious. It's ingenuous and ingenious is what it is. It's great.
あとゼマン作品で好きなのはゼマンの海なんですよね。あれ全部湖で撮ってたっていうのを知って、やっぱりゼマンさんが実際海のないチェコでその海を想像していた。で、海底のシーンとかも本当どれも素晴らしくて魅力的なんですけど。
Baron Prosil is the one that still sticks to me most because using cutouts like that and building them into multi-plane shots. And I still remember these shots pushing through. And in fact, it has been such an influence on me that when I made the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, I have a scene where character goes through the mirror and he's in a world of two-dimensional things in a 3D space. And in fact, I've written a whole film that's going to be based on that process. So that's completely from Zeman.
You look at these films and go, how was that done? And each frame, almost each composition, is kind of an effects challenge. You think, well, how did he manage to do that?
I was surprised again looking how funny the stuff was. He was always very funny.
There's something really cool and handmade and personal and beautiful about it.
Zeman, of course, was a great humanitarian. He wanted to make a film like that to say important things about humankind.
I would actually like to see Zeman's film again to see if there was even more I stole from it. At the moment I can't think, but I'm sure I stole a lot.
All right, so pretty neat little project there, and so it's gonna be a documentary, and I don't know if yeah, see, I'm not really sure. I think this must be part of like a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign or something, but seems like a pretty awesome project, and I hope that one day I'll actually get to see that. So Don Carlson, that's really cool. You're out of the hospital. So hopefully it wasn't anything serious that they said, or that you don't need to have your brain removed or something like that. That would be pretty bad. But yeah, Don, if you want to rewatch tonight's show, just I'm gonna end it actually, I guess, in about 2 minutes. You can just rewind there on your, I guess, at least on mine, if I look at the screen, looks like you can just go back with this little slider here. Looks like it's all there, all my recordings. You can go back in time. All right. Let's do this. So does anybody have any last words before I end the show? Before I execute the comments? Any last words? Yeah, we did. We talked a lot about smooth-on products. Lots of new things, cool stuff out there to cast with and make molds with, and also this Athena Studios. If you want to, check that out later on, is they got this video which is really awesome, especially on making these mermaids with 3D printers and silicone molds and everything. But anyway, I guess if I'm going to say anything at the end of the show, what would I say? Well, if you guys have any questions or anything like that about stop motion, definitely stop by our future shows and ask them in the chat section, because a lot of people visit here that are, have many years more experience even than I do, and it's always fun to, listen to their experiences and learn from them. And especially like, when Ron Cole or Dave says something about their experience with silicones or plastics, some of this stuff can actually save you a lot of money. Especially with urethane rubbers. I didn't realize that they tend to have so many issues. Makes me kind of afraid to buy some of them actually now. But anyway, thanks everybody for stopping by, and I guess I will see you guys all next week. All right, see y'all later.